Roster cutdown day in the NFL is always chaotic, and for the Dallas Cowboys, it's no different. There's a whirlwind of updates, moves, speculation, and of course, plenty of decisions that stir the pot among fans. So buckle up, because there's a lot to unpack here as the team trims the roster down and finalizes who's in, who's out, and who might still be hanging in limbo. And yeah, let's be honest, this is the time of year where fans become amateur general managers overnight. Let's start with the first cut of the day that came down, Tylen Holden. Now, if you've been paying attention, if you've been locked into this team, watching the tape, following the depth chart, and keeping up with reports out of camp, this move shouldn't shock you. Holden had some flashes during training camp, no doubt. He showed good hands, clean route running, and at moments looked like he could push for a depth spot. But the problem is, flashes alone don't earn you a seat at the table on a 53-man roster, especially when you're not offering anything on special teams. That's the nail in the coffin for a lot of these fringe wide receivers. And when you look at his preseason numbers, or the lack thereof, it becomes pretty clear. The guy wasn't exactly lighting up the stat sheet. Some of that's on the quarterback play, sure. But if you're really popping, it shows up regardless of who's throwing the football. So when you step back and look at the big picture, no special teams impact, minimal preseason production, and barely any guaranteed money in his contract, it becomes clear that this was always going to be a long shot for him. Now, do I think he'll get picked up on waivers? Honestly, I don't. There's just not enough there. Could a team take a flyer on him and stash him on their own practice squad? Sure, but my gut tells me Holden slips through waivers and ends up right back on the Cowboys practice squad, where they can keep developing him without using up a roster spot. That's probably the best-case scenario for both sides. He gets to stay in a system he's familiar with, and the Cowboys keep a player they've invested time in. Now that Holden's been waived, let's take a look at the current state of the Cowboys wide receiver room, because things are starting to crystallize, at least a little. CeeDee Lamb, obviously locked in as the WR1. Then you've got Pickens, who's had a really nice offseason, and Jalen Tolbert, who continues to carve out a role for himself. Cavani Turpin is another guy that's pretty much locked in, mostly because of his return skills, though he's also had his moments as a receiver. Mingo is injured and likely headed to injured reserve, which opens up a spot for someone else. Then you've got Cropper, who, let's be real, is probably not going to make the team either. So the real battle to watch? That last spot, and it's looking like a head-to-head between Tyrone Fenwick and Dennis Brooks. Personally, I think Fenwick is going to get it. He's shown more versatility, can line up in different spots, and has flashed just a little more in the preseason. But we'll see. These decisions are always tight, and sometimes it comes down to things we don't see, locker room presence, how they perform on special teams, or even who has minor injuries they're dealing with. It's always more layered than it looks from the outside. Injury updates are always a big part of the cut-down day chaos, and there's been some movement on that front as well. We talked recently about Phil Maffa and the expectation that he'd be placed on injured reserve with the intention of bringing him back later in the season. But now, there's a bit of a wrench in that plan. The Cowboys only have 2 IR return designations they can use at this stage, and they're planning to use them on Jonathan Mingo and Peyton Turner. That's straight from ESPN reports. So where does that leave Maffa? Well, it gets a little tricky. They can still stash him on IR, but it won't be with a return in mind, unless they pull some roster gymnastics. And trust me, if there's any front office that loves a good gymnastics routine, it's the Dallas Cowboys. They do this every year, keep guys on the 53-man roster for a day, then move them to IR, then re-sign a vet who was cut to make room. It's a dance. A complicated, frustrating dance. But it works. Right now, it looks like the Cowboys are considering that same maneuver with Maffa. They'll carry him through final cuts, then slide him onto IR so they don't lose him for the year. And to do that, they'll have to cut a couple of veterans who they trust will re-sign right after. That's the risk. The names to watch in that regard are guys like C.J. Goodwin, Sadiq Charles, Hakeem Adeniji, and Will Greer. Not all of them were expected to make the 53-man in the first place. But when you start playing this IR game, you need roster slots. And these are the players you can let go temporarily, knowing they're unlikely to get scooped up elsewhere. And while we're talking about cuts, another name dropped during filming. Tight end Raldo Fairweather has been released. Not a massive surprise, but still a notable name, especially considering the Cowboys have been tinkering with the tight in-depth chart throughout camp. Fairweather just couldn't quite separate himself from the pack. Shifting gears a bit, there's been a lot of buzz around the idea of the Cowboys going after Shiloh Sanders, who was recently waived by the Buccaneers. Let's get real about this one. Yes, he's Deion's son. Yes, the name carries weight. But if you're asking me whether he should be on an NFL 53-man roster right now, no. He had 4 tackles this preseason, but he also missed 3. And for a defensive back, that's a stat you can't overlook. He's not better than any of the 6 or 7 safeties already on this roster. And I think we all know we wouldn't be talking about him if his last name wasn't Sanders. Could you bring him onto the practice squad? Sure. No harm, no foul. Practice squads are for development and depth, and I'm never going to get worked up about who lands there. But a roster spot? Not happening. Not in Dallas. Not right now. Now, one player that I actually do think is worth a serious conversation is Audric Estime. The Cowboys need to keep an eye on this guy. He's not a game changer yet, but he's intriguing. He was decent last year for the Broncos, a day 3 pick who got some reps and did all right. Averaged just over 4 yards per carry, which, considering the state of Denver's offense, is respectable. And let's be honest, it's better than what we've seen recently from some of the names in this Cowboys backfield. The big issue with Estime is that he doesn't bring anything on third downs. Like at all. Caught just 5 passes last year. That's practically invisible in the passing game. And when you're playing behind a guy like Javonte Williams, you need to show versatility to stick around. Estime didn't, and that's why he's on the outside looking in. And while all this is going on, you better believe the front office is already mapping out their practice squad plans. The second these waivers clear, they'll be on the phones trying to bring back guys like Holden, maybe even Fairweather, and a few others who didn't make the cut. It's all part of the plan. This team knows how to work the margins. Whether that's enough to make a difference in January, well, that's a story for another day. As the dust continues to settle around the Cowboys roster decisions, it's becoming clearer how deep the rabbit hole goes when it comes to managing injuries, balancing potential, and making hard calls on players who may not move the needle now, but still hold long-term value. One of the most underappreciated elements of this time of year is how front offices juggle health concerns alongside roster needs, especially with players like Phil Maffa. This is where things get messy and sometimes controversial. The Cowboys have shown year after year that they're more than willing to play the IR game aggressively, manipulating timing and roster rules to maximize their flexibility. Carry a guy for one day, slide him onto IR the next, and then bring back a vet who's already packing his bag. That's the dance. And that's likely the route they'll take with Maffa. But it requires trust. It requires those veterans to believe in the organization enough to agree to a temporary exit with the promise of a quick return. If even one of those dominoes falls out of line, it could force Dallas into a tougher situation. Now, when you start doing the math, you can see just how tight things are getting. You've got Turner and Mingo locked in as your IR return designations. Maffa, potentially in that floating spot. Then there's Kalen Carson and his knee issue, which hasn't exactly been a minor injury. He's firmly in the mix for IR consideration, but there's only so much room. You can't stash everyone. That forces some brutally tough decisions. Do you carry Carson and risk burning a roster spot for someone who may not be ready for weeks? Or do you cut him loose and hope you can sneak him onto the practice squad? These are the calls that make or break roster depth late in the season when injuries start piling up. And if you mess this up now, you could be paying for it in December. Let's not overlook how these IR moves impact the veteran guys hanging around on the bubble. CJ Goodwin is one of those names who's been a staple on this team, mostly for his special teams prowess. He doesn't make headlines, but he's trusted by the staff and knows his role. He's the kind of player you can let go for a few days and feel fairly confident he's not getting scooped up. Same goes for Will Grier, though that situation feels a little more fluid. Grier has been the ultimate insurance policy. Good enough to hang around, but not good enough to force a real debate over the backup job. If he goes, he'll land somewhere eventually, but probably not as a starter. And then there's Sadiq Charles, who has flashed potential, but hasn't been consistent. That's a dangerous mix when you're competing for one of the last roster spots. Any guy with an injury history or spotty tape becomes expendable real fast during cut-down week. The Cowboys also face a philosophical decision with how they want to build the back end of their roster. Do you go with more offensive line depth? Do you prioritize another cornerback given the injuries? Or do you add bodies on special teams who might never take a snap on offense or defense, but could help you flip field position in a playoff game? These are the questions that define a team's identity. And Dallas has always leaned toward versatility. They want guys who can play multiple roles. So, if you're a one-dimensional player, even if you're really good at that one thing, you might find yourself out of a job. And while we're at it, let's circle back to the running back conversation because it's a hot topic right now, and for good reason. There's just not a lot of clarity behind the lead back. Sure, Jaden Blue has flashed. He's explosive, he's quick, and he's got juice. But he's also inexperienced and hasn't been tested in big moments. Do you feel comfortable giving him 10 to 12 touches a game in a must-win situation? That's the question. And that's where someone like Audric Estime comes into the picture. He may not be a complete back, but he brings physicality. He can run between the tackles, wear down a defense, and give you short yardage consistency. That's not nothing, especially when you look at how the Cowboys struggled in those exact situations last year. The power run game wasn't where it needed to be, and Estime gives you a shot at fixing that, even if it's just in a limited role. But again, the concern is duplication. Estime is redundant with Maffa. They do the same things, bring similar traits, and have the same weaknesses. Neither one gives you much in the passing game. Neither is a guy you trust on third down. So it becomes a pick-your-poison situation. Which one do you like more? Who's healthier? Who has better locker room chemistry? Who do you think has more long-term upside? These are the nuanced debates the front office is having right now, and there's no easy answer. Looking beyond Estime, though, it's clear Dallas has their eyes on the waiver wire. And they should. Every year, quality players shake loose during final cuts. Not because they're bad, but because teams are overloaded at certain positions or simply have cap constraints. The Cowboys are smart to monitor these names and pounce where it makes sense. You don't overhaul your roster this week, but you can make strategic upgrades. Grab a run stopper who fits your scheme. Add a veteran safety who knows how to align guys. Find a return man who's got just a little more burst than what you currently have. These are the little tweaks that can make a big difference in a long season. And let's be honest, not every name is going to be worth chasing. Take Shiloh Sanders, for example. He's been all over social media because of his last name, and yes, it's a great storyline. But when you look at the tape, it just doesn't justify the hype. He missed as many tackles as he made. He's not blowing up plays. He's not showing instincts that jump off the screen. He's just there. And being just there isn't good enough to crack this Cowboys secondary. Not with the depth they've already got. You've got safeties who can tackle, who can cover, who can play in the box and roam deep. Sanders isn't better than any of them. So unless you're bringing him in strictly for developmental reasons, there's no real case to be made. That doesn't mean the Cowboys won't make a surprise move. Sometimes these waiver pickups are more about traits than production. Maybe there's a guy with elite athleticism who just hasn't put it together yet. Maybe there's a high-upside player who needs a fresh start. The Cowboys love those types, players with tools they believe their coaches can refine. So if someone like that hits the market, don't be shocked if Dallas makes a claim. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The NFL world is buzzing with disbelief as the Dallas Cowboys have reportedly shocked the American sports scene by announcing the acquisition of San Francisco 49ers rising star quarterback Brock Purdy. Sources close to team management suggest that this move could redefine the Cowboys' offensive strategy and potentially shift the balance of power in the NFC. Purdy, who quickly rose to prominence with his impressive performance and poise under pressure, has become a fan favorite in San Francisco, and his sudden association with Dallas has set social media and sports talk shows ablaze with speculation. The circumstances surrounding the transfer remain murky, with rumors suggesting intricate negotiations that involve multiple draft picks and players, reflecting the Cowboys' determination to secure a quarterback of high caliber. Analysts are already dissecting game tapes, projecting how Purdy's mobility and accuracy could mesh with Dallas' existing roster, including their standout offensive line and dynamic receiving core. The sudden nature of the announcement has left fans divided, with some thrilled at the potential offensive fireworks, while others worry about team chemistry and adaptation to a new system. This development has prompted comparisons to past blockbuster trades in NFL history, raising questions about the motivations and long-term strategy of the Cowboys front office. Reports indicate that behind-the-scenes maneuvering played a crucial role in the Cowboys' ability to secure Brock Purdy, whose tenure with the 49ers has been marked by both remarkable comebacks and clutch performances. Industry insiders speculate that Purdy's decision to entertain a move to Dallas was influenced by the team's storied legacy, media exposure, and potential for championship contention. The Cowboys have long been in search of a quarterback who could elevate the franchise to elite status, and Purdy's unique combination of composure, decision-making, and leadership appears to fit the mold. Fans in Dallas are reportedly already buzzing with excitement, imagining the explosive possibilities of a Purdy-led offense capable of executing a high-octane passing attack. Meanwhile, San Francisco supporters are grappling with the sudden loss of a promising talent who appeared poised to lead the 49ers deep into playoff contention. Conversations across sports radio, podcasts, and online forums are dominated by debates over how Purdy will adjust to the Cowboys system, with speculation about the learning curve, coaching philosophies, and potential locker room dynamics. Analysts note that if the Cowboys can integrate Purdy effectively, they may have a quarterback capable of rivaling the league's best, creating new narratives and storylines that will dominate headlines for months to come. Inside sources hint that the financial aspects of Brock Purdy's transition may be as groundbreaking as the move itself, with the Cowboys reportedly offering an innovative contract structure designed to maximize incentives while maintaining flexibility under the salary cap. These financial details, while speculative, have fueled further intrigue as teams across the league scramble to understand how Dallas managed to pull off a deal of such magnitude. Meanwhile, the media frenzy surrounding Purdy's transfer shows no signs of slowing, with television networks dedicating hours of analysis and fan speculation trending across social platforms. Sports analysts emphasize that Purdy's skill set, particularly his accuracy on short and intermediate throws, quick release, and calm demeanor in high-pressure situations, makes him an ideal fit for Dallas offensive schemes, which rely on tempo, spread formations, and explosive playmaking. There is also talk about how this acquisition could impact team culture, leadership hierarchy, and locker room chemistry, as players and coaching staff adjust to new dynamics. The Cowboys coaching staff is reportedly preparing a series of strategy meetings and practice sessions aimed at integrating Purdy seamlessly into their system, while also leveraging his strengths to optimize offensive production. Rumors suggest that internal discussions have focused not just on passing schemes, but on holistic offensive coordination, including quarterback mobility, play-action timing, and red zone efficiency. Beyond the tactical considerations, the arrival of Brock Purdy has sent ripples through the broader NFL landscape as rival teams and pundits assess the implications for playoff projections and conference rivalries. The Cowboys' acquisition has sparked renewed interest in NFC matchups, with fans speculating how Purdy's presence might change the outcome of games against formidable opponents like the Eagles, Packers, and 49ers themselves. Social media has exploded with memes, highlight reels, and fan-made montages, reflecting both excitement and anxiety over this unexpected move. Speculation is rife regarding the team's draft and trade strategies moving forward, as experts debate whether this acquisition signals a more aggressive approach to roster building or a targeted attempt to solve a long-standing quarterback dilemma. Purdy's transition could also influence coaching decisions, play-calling tendencies, and offensive rhythm, creating a cascade of strategic adjustments across the league. Meanwhile, sports journalists are investigating the personal side of the story, exploring how Purdy's family, mentors, and advisors might have influenced his decision to switch teams. The narrative of a young star leaving a successful environment for a high-profile opportunity in Dallas captures the imagination of fans and media alike, with many framing it as a turning point not just for the Cowboys, but potentially for the NFC as a whole. As the dust settles, all eyes are on Dallas, where anticipation for Brock Purdy's debut continues to mount amid a swirl of rumors and speculation. Training camp reports suggest that the quarterback has been integrating quickly, learning playbooks, and developing chemistry with receivers and offensive linemen. Yet the challenge of living up to expectations remains immense. Sports insiders are cautioning fans not to underestimate the adjustment period required for a quarterback entering a new system, emphasizing that Purdy's success will depend on a combination of skill, adaptability, and support from coaching staff and teammates. Yet the buzz around the move has already reinvigorated the Cowboys fan base, injecting optimism and conversation into stadiums, bars, and online forums across the country. Merchandise sales, ticket demand, and media coverage are reportedly surging as a direct result of the announcement, reflecting the immense cultural and commercial impact of acquiring a high-profile quarterback like Purdy. As speculation continues regarding future trades, game plans, and playoff implications, one thing is certain. Brock Purdy's unexpected move to Dallas has set the NFL abuzz, and the coming season promises to be one of the most closely watched, debated, and exciting chapters in recent football history. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.